vision. Switching through the channels got me getting tunnel vision. I've been reminiscing on times when we were children, running in the open, seeing colors where there isn't. See through my scope.
Hello and welcome to the MegabyteMe podcast series, the show where technology meets humanity and the stories are what matters the most. I'm your host, Adam Geisler, and here at MegabyteMe, we go beyond the noise. Beyond the headlines, the hype, the surface level takes, and into the real stories of the people shaping America's broadband future. We talk to builders, teachers, advocates, and visionaries. Not just what they do, but more importantly, why do they do it? Because this work is about more than infrastructure. It's about purpose, it's about integrity, and it's about perseverance of the American way of life. At the heart of it, it's about family. It's about joy. It's about the quiet victories that we get to experience that come from showing up and doing the work that not everybody always sees, even when it's hard. These are Americans' broadband stories, told with heart, with honesty, and without filters. If you're ready to hear what drives connection in this country, you're in the right place. So let's jump into it. I'm really honored to have one of our featured guests here on the MegabyteMe podcast series, who is not a stranger to cutting through the noise, Miss Gigi Sohn, representing the Benton Institute and also the American Association for Public Broadband, where she's the executive director. For those of you that have been in this space for a number of years, Gigi is no stranger. She's a longtime public interest advocate and one of the most influential voices in American and U.S. communications policy. She's a former senior advisor to the FCC chair, Tom Wheeler, and also a nominee for the FCC Commission. She's also a Benton Institute Senior Fellow and a champion for digital equity. We should all know that by now, as well as open networks and broadband affordability. She's also the founder of Public Knowledge. You should check that out. A nonprofit that has shaped national policy on internet access and net neutrality. I remember those letters from my broadband days at NTIA. And also known for her integrity, and I mean this, her resilience and her unwavering commitment to public service over politics. Gigi has spent her career making sure every voice is heard, every community is connected, and no one is left behind in the digital age as we move forward. It really is an honor to have you here today on the show, Gigi. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks, Adam. And I'm really, really touched. And I'm also touched that you actually pronounced my name correctly. You can call me Gigi, but Gigi is actually the right way to pronounce my name. And Tom Wheeler, the former FCC chairman, was probably the only person who would announce it correctly. And my grandmother.
And your grandma's always right. I love it. Well, Gigi, thanks for being here, because I think a big part of what we're doing with this show is trying to get people to understand those that are doing the work, but really what drives them. We just shared a lot about your experience and, more importantly, your body of work. And I think that it's important for our listeners to understand the most obvious question. So we'll go there. Why do you do this? What motivates you to wake up every day and connect the unconnected and help those that maybe don't have the biggest voice?
Yeah, I think what motivates me is I realize how lucky I am. I realize that my parents worked their behinds off, so I lack nothing. And I can, pick up this phone, be on my computer, talk to anybody I want to at any time, look up any information I ever wanted to look up. And if people say, oh, well, who won the World Series in 1972? Oh, well, I just picked this up and do it. And I believe that everybody should have equal opportunity to have the same privileges that I have, and that nobody should be left behind. That's just always been like a core value of mine, and it just kind of manifested itself into doing work in the communications law space. Now, I'm so old that I started out trying to make broadcasting and cable more democratic. And that was when I started working for the Media Access Project in 1988, that was right in the middle of sort of Reagan, Bush, and deregulation. And it was difficult to accomplish and mostly did not succeed. But I understood the connection between connectivity and democracy, right? And that if you're not connected, you don't have a voice. And it's never been more true than today.
Never been more true than
today.
That's
so
right.
I feel like, my goals And my values have actually become more important as time has gone on. This is not to diss the importance of broadcast television or cable, in shaping public opinion. It still does. I know people want to kind of toss it to the side. But now, if you are not connected, you cannot participate in society.
You can't participate. Inclusion is a big part of your work. You mentioned your parents, just as we got this going. Something happened as you were growing up that your folks showed you in your life that included others, right? That value came from somewhere. That fight that everybody sees on the outside, there's something inside of you that you're thinking about every day when you wake up. What is it that your parents showed you in how they lived or in how they worked that instilled this passion inside you? Because for me, I do everything, but my mom is always running in the back of my head.
Yeah.
You can't get that voice out of your head. So I'm just curious for you, what drives that piece of you?
So my mother was one of the first physician assistants licensed in the United States. Wow. She had a license plate. I grew up in New York. You could probably still tell.
No.
RPA 200. And in those days, so she was licensed in 1973. She actually went back to school when I was in 5th grade, and I was so upset because she was a stay-at-home mother, but it was the best thing, frankly, that it not only happened to her, but happened to us. And she was selfless. Our PAs didn't make a lot of money in those days. Still don't make a lot of money, but they make more because there's such a shortage in good medical people. She would work long hours, and she would, work way beyond what was expected of her. And she actually specialized in adolescent medicine, and which was not really a field at the time. But the thing was, she gained this reputation of somebody who was so selfless and would spend unbelievable amounts of time with her patients when other doctors would be like, okay, 5 minutes, I gave you your shot, I listened to your heart, you're out. And that kind of selflessness, you notice that. She would come home very, very late and make dinner because she was with a patient. She didn't have to do that, but she did it because she believed in what she was doing. She believed in caring for people. And my dad was, ever the supported. My dad and I, we shared a sense of humor.
Okay.
I've got this great picture of the two of us.
He has to be as witty as you. Is that where
he was even wittier.
Okay.
He was even wittier. But he just was the most supportive father. My mother was the big personality.
Sure.
But he was the guy who would sometimes say, okay, Roma, that's her name. She's still alive. He unfortunately passed away. Calm down, mellow out. And he was a big influence on my life as well. I didn't really realize it till I got older. I thought I was 100% my mother, but I really turned out to be 50-50. So, like I said, she was a workaholic. He was not. He worked for Grumman Corporation on Long Island, now Northrop Grumman. It was the biggest employer. He was an accountant/auditor. A simple guy.
Yeah.
But a great guy. So I got my sense of humor from him, and also my sense of sometimes I just have to do nothing. Like I must relax and just do nothing and maybe stare into space. My mother's not like that. She's like the Energizer Bunny. I get some of that from her.
I think you got a lot of that from her.
But again, that selflessness that my mother had in her work really rubbed off on me a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think it shows. That's good to get a sense of what motivates and what drives you in your work, because we were talking last night, and anybody that has a chance to join us on this show, you're going to get to meet everybody that's involved in this, because we care about the production, but we care about the people. One of the things that we had a chance to talk about a little bit last night was the never-ending and compounding buckets of challenges that continue to be thrown at you. And it hasn't been any short stint for you here over the last few years. I mean, forget we're going beyond the politics and the noise, right? There's the now, but there's years of effort that you've put into this, and years of obstacles. I think back to something a little more recent, right? The battles around ACP, and now we're looking at additional subsidy support, E-rate, and other things, and now we're on to equity access issues and all those pieces. And I think that while everybody is getting consumed by these challenges, one of the things that I always look to are elders in our communities, and I'm not calling you old, but I'm an elder.
I'll admit it.
I'm not calling you old. I'm not saying that.
Elder, I think I consider that a huge compliment.
Okay,
coming from you. Come on.
Then you are one of the broadband elders in this country. And I think what people need to understand right now is the tone and tenor is seasons, right? You're a mom. You've seen the growth of your child over various seasons. How do you relate the challenges that you're seeing every day in this space to you being a mom, and what that, and how you're encouraging your daughter through the challenges that she's facing? Because you're living it every day, Gigi.
Yeah. No, it really is. I mean, I gave a speech in Arizona just a few days ago, and it was to digital equity advocates who have just had their funding, about $3 billion worth of funding, ripped from them via tweet by President Trump. And I reminded them, even though it wasn't easy to do so, that when I first spoke before this very same conference, this is the Net Inclusion Conference, National Digital Inclusion Alliance, I spoke in front of that conference in 2016. I was a staffer at the FCC, and there was 200 people in the audience, and nobody really knew what it meant to be a digital inclusion and equity practitioner.
Yeah.
And then I came to this conference 9 years later, and there's 800 people, and there would have been hundreds more, but for the fact that the funding went away, right? So I think last year they had 1,300.
Yeah.
So you watch a field go from pretty much nothing to this just, blossoming into this whole field of work that didn't exist before. That is kind of like a maturing of a child. And my daughter, she's an amazing kid, and she has gotten she's adopted from Guatemala, but she's got mom's sense of humor.
Love it.
She's a total nurture kid, right? So it is like watching a child mature. Right. And the same thing, one of the big things for me is mentoring young advocates. I'm trying to put together a curriculum to start like a new advocacy institute to teach young advocates in this space, or new advocates in this space, how to be effective. Even if you don't win all the time. And trust me, I've had a lot more losses than as you mentioned, than wins in my career. So it's really important for me to have, folks who are dedicated to this field and have them stay in this field. And that, I got to tell you, Adam, you talk about challenges. Mm-hmm. If you ask me, what's the number one challenge you faced doing this work? It's funding. Okay, it's not my nomination. It's not getting the job I wanted at the Ford Foundation. I've had all these kind of, ups and downs in my career. Yeah. But with the exception of literally a handful of philanthropies, it has been a humongous disappointment that progressive philanthropies cannot seem to connect the dots between being online, being connected, and democracy. And I think part of the reason for that is because once you make the initial case, they kind of nod their head, and then you tell them what you have to do to get there. And then you're talking about spectrum, and you're talking about fiber, and you're talking about all this technical crap.
The eyes roll back.
Right, exactly.
Sure.
Oh, God,
It sounds hard.
But that to me has been the biggest challenge. And I have spent many, many hours talking to philanthropic organizations, wealthy individuals, to try to explain to them why they ought to invest over the long term and with big dollars in this field. Because let me tell you something, that's what the conservative philanthropies do.
Well, what's interesting in this space as a whole is the approach. I think people hear different terms, and we'll avoid the terms and just talk about what it means.
Right. Yep.
Right. We're talking about training and educating people on how to use a tool that they've never had. I think you and I have gotten to know each other through the work I've done in Indian country, and it's amazing to me how many people you can come across in this space that are like, what do you mean folks don't have access to the internet? They don't. That is still here today as this economy and this world is evolving to be very digital. And I think that to your point on where the connection is missed sometimes on the business aspects of some of these pieces is as much as you need people to be skilled and trained to be able to connect fiber, splice fiber, point antennas and radios at each other, manage the spectrum. In the communities where these networks are being deployed, those folks that are seen as connecting the homes are often from the community, and they also are the second phone call when somebody needs help setting up the internet in their home, right? I have an email access question, or can you help me get online for the first time banking? And I realize that's so wild to people. What I've said to some of the builders out there that are really focused on the construction, the hard aspects of these trades is, it does you no good if they're missing the soft skills needed to engage the customer
Yes.
too, right?
Yes.
The workforce is only going to be as qualified and capable as what we invest and we train those people for those roles. So I say hats off to you for keeping the vision alive and ensuring that advocacy is real, because this isn't a dead issue.
Yeah.
This is a very real issue.
Yeah. And it is amazing to me that people take for granted that they can turn on a computer, that they know how to use a web browser, they know how to use a search engine. I mean, there is like this kind of, not amnesia, but just like lack of recognition that no, you don't wake up with those skills, and that, digital equity is never going to go. The need for digital equity practitioners to get people online, to explain to them how to use the tools, that's never going away. No. We may get to a point where we have infrastructure everywhere, or almost everywhere, if the BEAD money ever gets released.
That'll be another episode.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
But the larger point is, I think people don't realize the skills that are needed.
Yes.
And I would say that true of the philanthropies I was talking about. When the infrastructure bill was passed and there was $65 billion for broadband, there was this collective thought, oh, it's done. It's done. It's been accomplished. Bye-bye. We don't need to fund you anymore. No, it actually just started. That was the beginning. That was not the end. So it's a frustration of mine.
I have a question for you, and it's a bit of a curveball, and it's around AI in this space.
Okay.
So obviously there's big talk in DC and in the industry collectively in the space around what AI is going to do, right? Yeah. And I think there's this thought process out there right now that, well, don't worry about, let's change the term of digital equity for just a second and call it educators, right? There's no need to teach people is kind of what we're saying by saying AI will handle this. And that's really concerning to me. AI
will handle what?
I don't know, and that's what I can't seem to figure out, is how is AI going to handle the education of skilled labor? I don't understand. I didn't learn how to drive my car. Thank you very much for the educators that worked with me to learn how to drive and have kept the streets safe. But the bottom line is I didn't learn how to drive a car by sitting behind a monitor. I learned how to drive a car by sitting in that seat and understanding how to do those things. And so I hear how the discussion of AI in this space is going to change. There's no need to invest anymore. And I have to pause for a second and go, where did humanity go in all of this technology and all these connections that we're building? I don't know. You thoughts on that?
No, that's extremely troubling. Anything that takes us further away from human to human connection is troubling to me.
That's right.
Look, I use ChatGPT. So AAPB, the American Association for Public Broadband, we had a conference in Hill Day 2 weeks ago. And I was the person who had to organize 23 people going to meet all their members of Congress or their staffs or what have you. And I used ChatGPT. I fed them a spreadsheet of the participants and a spreadsheet of the meetings that I had set up, and it gave me a perfect matrix. And everybody got to meet with there were 4 groups, and everybody got to meet with their member or the staff. That's cool. What it's great for, yes. Stuff like that.
Yes.
But to replace human connection, particularly in this space, I think is extremely dangerous. I didn't go to the panel. There was a panel at Net Inclusion on AI and digital equity. I didn't go because I think I went to a rural panel instead, which was fantastic. But that concerns me greatly. And that's why I love the community broadband stuff, is because it really is about the local community helping each other to get online. And I would love to see more communities, particularly those that have no competition or where the incumbents have cherry-picked, to actually consider building their own. They don't have to run it. There's plenty of companies who run it for them, but owning the infrastructure gives you so much power to make sure that everybody gets affordable connectivity and to ensure that there are digital equity inclusion practitioners and they are learning the skills. So I'd love to see that spread. It's not cheap. But there are ways to fund community networks. It's entirely possible. But again, I love working with those people because it is that local to local connection. So I know I've gotten away from the AI point, but I think you get what I'm saying. It's just like, why put us further away from connecting with each other. You know, the hands-on touch that you get from a digital inclusion practitioner, I think, is critically important to the basically the client learning those skills.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of just gets me to prompt even a little bit further on this technology space in terms of the future of AI. And I guess, what's the big fear that you have beyond the human interaction piece? I think we're all seeing that. We're all a little hesitant as I've explored on ChatGPT. Maybe some of these questions have come from there. Not that I'm putting a plug for anybody's AI platform. But I guess where are you've seen a lot. You've lived a lot. You're one of the elders of American Broadband.
Yeah. Where
do you see all this going? And to what end do you think success looks like in the world of Gigi Sohn?
Right.
Where would you like this to go? You see where it's going. I want to hear that. But then I want to know, where would you like it to go in Lou?
I mean, look, I've got a very, very simple goal, and I've been working towards it for over 35 years. And I tell people, if you want like a quick victory, this is not your field. Like, go do something else. I don't know what you would do, but go maybe work at a Starbucks or what have you. You can make people happy with coffee. But this is not the field. What I want is very simple. I want every single household in this country to be connected to affordable, robust broadband. Okay, that is scalable, that is future-proof. Yes. There are going to be the one person on the mountain who's going to get Starlink for whatever that's worth, right? And it'd be more than that. I don't want to be too glib about it. Sure. But I want this to be like water and electricity. It is like water and electricity, and I think some people would give up their water and electricity before they'd give up this. This thing is a utility. Whether it is regulated like a utility to me is kind of beside the point. The point is that this is a must-have. It is not a nice-to-have. And if people didn't realize that during the pandemic, they'll never realize. And I don't think anybody even argues anymore that it's not. It is a utility. It is something. Somebody said to me, I think it was Catherine DeWitt from Pew Charitable Trust, who's just a wonderful human being and so smart. She said, I just want to be able to turn it on, right? Take it for granted. Turn it on like a light switch. Turn it on, like a water tap, and you're not even thinking about it. That's what I want for every single person in this country. And frankly, around the world. But I'll just start with this country.
We'll start with the country, yes.
I'll start with the country first.
Yes, exactly. No, part of that passion is also, I think, coming from your understanding of the importance of community access, but the importance of data around that. I don't think everybody today understands how data is collected or shared amongst people.
That's for sure.
And I know that, somehow we've become the commodity.
Yeah.
I question sometimes why I have a bill, since everybody's mining me. But that being said, I mean, I think we have a bright future if we can find affordable connectivity. But back to the idea that this is a utility.
Yeah.
You had the benefit of coming up and seeing where I reside and got a chance to meet my family. And I got to tell you, I had fiber sitting right in front of my home, and it's not connected today.
Oh, trust me, I know. I was trying to, I was looking at my phone, SOS, right?
Yeah, you're hoping. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Even last week, I have the fortune of running into a lot of folks that are going to be on this show, frankly, on the road. And we've all had those experiences of going through the airport and, oh, shoot, I didn't check in on time. Or, oh, shoot, right? Those aha moments of, well, this is a utility. Like, I can't function in society without it. And I think about even the pandemic with the way that health had to pivot in terms of delivery of service. You're right, it is a utility. And I think anybody that's gray around that maybe should rethink their position. How do you suggest we get people to warm up to the idea that this is a utility? Because we all see it, we all understand it, but not everybody is embracing the idea and the treatment of a utility. They're fearful for a whole bunch of things, I imagine, related to money. But what's your take on that?
Well, again, who's the everybody? I mean, if you talk to anybody outside the Beltway, they will say, of course it's a utility. I mean, there's really nobody I've spoken to who doesn't who doesn't reside on Capitol Hill or, at First and L Street where the FCC is, who doesn't think this is a utility. I mean, overwhelmingly, and it doesn't matter what party they're in, or, where they live, it's a utility.
It's a utility.
However, they're not the ones that make policy. And I actually think if you talk to a lot of state legislators, which I do a lot of work with Benton around state legislators, they actually have a group called State Connections that meets once a month, and it's state legislators from all over the country, and they actually are just fascinated. Like, some of the questions are very basic, but then there are some folks who are like real broadband heroes, and they would tell you they think it's a utility. It's all about the fear that it would somehow be regulated like a utility, that the FCC or some other government body would set rates. Now, you're starting to see in New York passed a law that said, okay, here's the rate, here's an affordable rate you must charge, right? So $15 a month for 100 down, 20 up. And I think it's $20 a month for something a little bit faster. California's considering the same.
Interesting.
I think there's another state that's also considering the same. And that is their greatest fear, is that somebody will do rate setting, which is like a utility.
Right.
Well, if you provided an affordable service, affordable robust service, not an affordable garbage service, then maybe you wouldn't have to be regulated.
You raise a really good point. Where or how did we get to this point where, and maybe this is just me being a little bit, I don't know, Pollyanna or rose-colored glasses, but where do we get to a point where this space has become, it's always been customer focused.
Yeah.
Right. And now we're reaching a point where, is the customer really the focus, or is it the dollar? And you have these regulatory concerns, and you have some of these overarching concerns, but the people are still left without the service. And one thing that I think is always striking to me, and everybody would ask, some of the other hats I used to wear was, Adam, if the federal government subsidized so much of this, why am I having such a hard time getting access to this stuff?
A question as old as time, right? And why did we even need an ACP? And I'm a huge supporter of the ACP. Would love to see a subsidy be bought back in some way, either like an ACP, or by fixing the Universal Service Fund, expanding it so you can essentially fold in the $30 subsidy there. I mean, there are folks on the far left that didn't like this, and on the far right who felt like, well, it's corporate welfare, and I had to deal with that. It is corporate welfare, but it was corporate welfare for a good cause.
Sure.
But what's great about it is that everybody liked it. So it's mind-boggling to me that Congress couldn't see fit to extend it.
Right.
But we need that subsidy back in some way. But it is kind of, when you think about what you just said, we have subsidized these networks enormously, and even the biggest companies, the Charters and the AT&Ts, have taken billions of dollars from the taxpayer, and yet we still don't have affordable broadband everywhere. It just says it shouldn't make. It doesn't really make sense, but unfortunately, that's the way things work. And again, this is why I'm such a big community broadband advocate, because there's not the same incentives. If you're a local community, your incentives to get everybody connected with a good service, affordable service. If you're Charter or AT&T, you're looking at your return on investment.
Sure.
And if that means not serving the poorest areas, that's what it means, right? And if that means not having a robust, low-cost plan, that's what it means. I mean, look at all the Sturm and Drang around the low-cost mandate of the infrastructure bill.
Yep.
Right? That is actually in the law.
Yep.
And the pushback by industry about that affordable mandate was quite striking.
It was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was interesting to see, and again, I just scratched my head going, these have been subsidized to some degree, so there's got to be a balance. It's got to be a balance.
One would think.
One would think. We're going to take a break, because I do want to pick your brain a little bit more about how you balance everything you are doing with all of this craziness in the world. So
it's not easy, my friend.
I believe it. Well, I'm really honored to have you here. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Great.
Thanks.
party all night and we sleep all day. Movers, shakers, Wall Street blazers. Heels so high they about to break. I want that. Ooh, level up, that's my kind of vibe. And if you want that too, then you know it's a state of mind. You know that it's a state of mind. We on to the next thing.
All right, and welcome back from our break. I'd again like to thank our guest today, Miss Gigi Sohn, for joining us here on the Megabyte Me podcast. Just before we jumped onto our break, Gigi, we were talking about balance. You know, obviously, there's a lot that has been flying at you over the years, and we can talk about, as we have, the nuances of this space. But there's a human aspect to every single one of us that's out doing this work every day, and you've been doing this for a moment. I struggle in finding balance. I'll admit that. You know, you seem like a person that has been burning the candle at both ends. You know, as you described in the beginning here about you know the characteristics that made you from your parents. I'm guilty of that too, and so I'm always looking for folks in their ideas around how do they find balance. Is there music or food? You know, when the lights go off and Gigi needs to sit down for a second in her quiet space and place. What are you doing? What are you thinking? What brings you that balance? Well,
all those things. There is nothing more centering for me than just making a meal. I love to cook.
Okay.
And when I cook, all I'm thinking about is the food in front of me and what it's going to look like and what the ingredients are. I literally block out the world.
Love it.
Also, when I listen to music, I do favor 80s new wave. It's my favorite music. I also love jazz and classical, but 80s new wave, when a song that I love, you know, gets on the radio, I'll just like belt it out, you know, when I'm driving in my car. And I don't think of anything else. I just think of pure joy, right? So I am actually able to block out, you know, all the noise. And there is a lot of noise. I will say, you know, after my nomination fell apart, I had trouble sleeping. And that was just, it's the worst thing in the world to be a zombie and not be able to sleep.
I get it.
And, you know, the way I came back, I think, from that was a little bit of drugs for a little while, you know, and anxiety meds, but also spending time with family and friends. And that's the other thing. There is nothing I enjoy more than getting together with a bunch of friends, having a drink and some food and just laughing. So we talked about net inclusion. And after I gave my speech, they were so nice. They gave me like this huge suite in the hotel. So I invited about 15 people over just to have some rosé and bubbly and just talk. And it was great. It got so loud, even with only 15 people, that my next door neighbor told us to quiet down. I had to kick everybody out. But that to me was the essence of just pure joy, being around people I loved and respected and who were rowing in the same direction as me, and just getting together and shooting the breeze. Like I don't remember what we were talking about. I don't think we were having any intense policy conversations because that was going on for the previous 2 days. But just being around people and enjoying people that you care about and you respect, is that to me really, really gives me balance. Because it is about people, isn't it? I mean,
it is. I mean, you and I have had this discussion. I mean, it's wild to me that we've spent so much money and so much time to connect everybody. And yet we've reached this point in society where we don't know how to talk, right? It's say, let me get a hold of you really quick, and and here I am on my and I'm sitting across from you. You know, it's wild to me a little bit, but
my daughter will text me from upstairs, and that is annoying. Like, get off your duff and come down and talk to me.
I love it. The balance to keep things moving, I think, is something that all the road warriors out there are just, everybody's struggling right now. So I appreciate you sharing that piece of you, because everybody's got their own way of going about this, right? We're all kind of soul searching at the moment, I think, in this space and understanding where it's headed, but kind of keeping those pieces grounded. And you mentioned your family. How has technology played a role in your family, in the day-to-day, not the stage and the mics and the pieces that people are used to seeing? How's technology working in your household today with your family?
So my daughter calls me. She's in college. She's a rising junior. She calls me 5 to 6 times a day.
Oh, yeah.
Which, look, when I was in college, it cost $1 or $2 a minute for me. I went to Boston University undergraduate to call my parents. So that was just like not an option. But we, really stay connected, I think, in a very healthy way. But she's calls me, like not the text, the actual call. Like she wants to hear my voice and I want to hear her voice. And I actually almost never call her. So which I thought, oh, she's in college, she's going to want to blow me off. But that's the one way in technology that we really, really stay connected. The other thing is my wife has started a Substack and she's really excited about it. So she's writing about the history of intelligence policy in this country, and particularly its sort of racist and colonial roots. So she has become so every Sunday before she posts at 10 o'clock, I have to be her editor and read her Substack. She's an amazing writer. Now, I do complain that her posts are too long, and of course she writes about that in her Substack. Of
course.
So, I mean, I wouldn't say we're obsessed with technology. We're not gamers,
sure,
or anything like that. And we all, my wife and I exercise a lot. I'm a huge sports fan. Anybody who knows me, knows how I feel about the New York Mets and the New York Jets. It's very sad. You talked about challenges. Being a Mets and Jets fan are about two of the biggest challenges that I've ever, faced in my life.
I'm unfortunately a San Diego everything fan, so I share in that with you. Our teams just seem to leave at times.
Well, you told me last night you were a hockey player. So interestingly, I'm a Capitals fan. That's Washington. I'm also a Mystics fan. I don't care that much about the NBA. I am rooting for the Knicks right now, and they blew a huge game the other day. But in any event, when you told me that you were a hockey player, I was blown away and really pleased because I did play hockey for a short while. Oh, it's a great game.
Oh, this all makes sense now. I will tell you that there is a random little nexus of people I keep running into that I'm like, I like you. And then I find out it's hockey. So this is not staged, everybody. We didn't know this. I didn't know this about. That's amazing.
Yeah. I played 4 sports in high school. I played field hockey, volleyball, basketball. Yes, I'm 5 foot tall, and I played volleyball and basketball.
I love it.
And softball. And then in college, I played rugby. I was mostly a scrum half, it's a great game. It's just getting popular in this country. And then in my adulthood, I played rugby, in law school and then after law school. Yeah. But then I played hockey for about 5 years, and I loved it. Oh, it's a great game. I'm a terrible skater, but I can shoot.
Everybody's got that one thing that they wish you just, I loved, you know what I loved about that sport? And I think it draws a really clean analogy for, I think, the way that you work. So I'm just going to say it. Some folks lead in different ways. In the hockey arena, it's a team of people, and everybody has roles. And I have to laugh that, whether it was your hockey or rugby, you use the word scrum, you don't have a problem getting in the corners. You don't have a problem standing shoulder to shoulder with somebody else. And that's a unique form of leadership. There's some that love to lead from behind and direct. You're not that person, which has drawn me to you. I probably not shocking to anybody at this point.
That is one thing I will say, Adam. The one thing that I really miss, kind of being, sort of the advocate at large, is I really loved managing a team when I was at Public Knowledge, right? And we had a great team, and I loved being part of a team when I was at the FCC. I really didn't have anybody working under me, and I do miss that. Like, I do have my public interest colleagues, and there are, as I mentioned before, a bunch of folks that I mentor and care deeply about. But there is something about, working in either an agency or an organization, all rowing in the same direction, and just, having fun and silly times and happy hours. I do miss that.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, you don't, again, talk about the things that happen when you're younger and how much that translates when you get older. Then you start having kids and you realize, oh my gosh, that really translates even better. One thing that I am really trying to rub off on my kids a little bit is the appreciation for music. I love the fact that it's one of those things that you can't necessarily see it and you can't necessarily touch it, but you can feel it.
Yeah.
And, I think that's a lot of the things that are happening in this space today, not to draw kind of a corny analogy to that, but there's so much happening in this space that nobody sees. And yet there's people every day waking up, busting their butt, caring about you, all of you, and you don't even know who these people are.
Yeah.
The words of encouragement are something people are always asking for. I'm not going to ask you about what words of encouragement you had, because we kind of talked about that for a second. But as you reflect upon your career and you're seeing the need for these advocates coming into the future, and you're seeing the need to have this balance, how is it that you would like to see these advocates carrying themselves forward when they run into the conflict? It's one of those questions of, how do you say 5 things nice about the people that are really hard to work with?
Yeah. I mean, I just think you have to comport yourself with grace, right? And keep your eyes on the prize. I do pride myself in being able to talk to anybody. And that was one of the things about, my whole nomination/confirmation process. I was turned into this, hard partisan who, hated Republicans which was nonsense.
Yeah.
And even to this day,
you love everybody.
I do. And nothing gives me more joy than being able to join together with somebody who I might not agree with on anything else. So 2 of my closest friends in this space now, one is a evangelical Christian from Mississippi, Republican, who took my wife Laura and I out to dinner, and was actually less fascinated about the fact that they were lesbians, but that I was Jewish. That's what he asked all these questions about Judaism, which was interesting.
Yeah.
And then the other is, again, a very right-wing young Republican state legislator in West Virginia who helped me in my nomination process, and I helped him get reelected, although it almost cost him the election, because his opponents were putting out pictures of the 2 of us together. I gave him some money, right? Takes money from liberal Biden, blah, blah, blah. So, but those are 2 of my closest colleagues, and I love them dearly, and I would do anything for them.
I love that.
So, I think when there's a mistake that people make by just going into their little club and never reaching out. Because even if you won't completely get somebody on your side, at least you form a relationship. It's all about relationships. So I used to get invited to speak to the Federalist Society, which is the extremely conservative lawyers. It was mostly around net neutrality, FCC authority. And I would go there and I would debate somebody, and people would inevitably come up to me and say, Gigi, I don't agree with everything you said, but you made me think. And I thought, that's something.
That's right.
That's progress. We're actually having a conversation as opposed to like spitting on each other and calling each other names.
It's wild to me. It's wild to me where we're not here for politics, obviously.
Right.
But it's wild to me to see the landscape on what it is, because so much of who we're here to help is getting lost in the noise.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing that story and frankly, just taking the time to come on. Nobody needs to defend Gigi Sohn, right? I'm not here to do that. You're not here to
I can defend myself.
You can defend yourself just fine. But what's important for me that I want people to understand is the side of you that I've gotten to know. The side that I think sometimes people, you described yourself as the veneer in which people approach you, and they don't know you the way I've gotten to know you. You're a mom. You care. You love everybody.
I really do.
You really do.
I really shouldn't, but I do.
That's also a testament to your veracity and your patience. I think that a healthy breath of conversation and infusing humanity back into this space is why we're doing this. I can't thank you enough for spending the time and sharing some of these stories with us to really make sure people understand who you are and what your story is in this space. It's far more than a red or blue. This is about a heart for people and a heart for community. So I really want to thank you for sharing some of those stories. As we start to wind down the back half of this segment, I always want to pause for a second, just give room for all of our guests to reflect on the things that they think are most important, that when we shut off these cameras, I don't want to have the moment, maybe it always happens, but I want to have that moment where you're like, I wish I would have said this, Adam. I was burning and I had this thought in my head of wanting to make sure that people understand this about me or my work. Is there anything you want to share that's just sitting on your heart or your mind?
Yeah, look, we're in tough times right now. And it's very easy to give up hope. There are days that I wake up and I just I just feel the energy just drained from me and say, you know, how are we going to get through this? But we will. But we have to fight, right? I mean, after the nomination confirmation process, I laid low for a while. It was a trauma. I'll be honest with you. It was a trauma. Sure. I laid low. I was like, well, maybe I'm not going to be so vocal anymore. Not because I have any designs on going back in the government or anything like that, but just I'm tired, right? And this was even before the election.
Right.
But frankly, once the election happened and I kind of recovered, it's like, no, we've got to speak out. And let me just tell a story. So I helped to put together a filing at the FCC that pushed back on what the chairman is doing, trying to punish CBS for editing a Kamala Harris video on 60 Minutes, okay? You know, there's a complaint in front of the FCC saying it was news distortion, and my job was to get as many former FCC commissioners on the filing. So I reached out to about 17 of them, and 5 of them signed on, only 5, okay? And a lot of these are people that I didn't even bother to ask the ones who, you know, are head of trade associations because I knew they weren't going to sign on, right, or had business before the FCC. But I was really disappointed, and one of them said to me, well, you know, we're being asked to do a lot of things right now, the formers. And I'm like, well, if now is not the time, when? Like, we can't wait.
That's right.
We can't wait to speak out. You know, and the same person said to me, when they said, well, how many people do you have on the pleading? I said 5. And they said, 5, that's a good number, go with it. I mean, again, if now is not the time, when is the time?
That's right. Well, I think it is our time. It is our time as a country to meet this moment. It's our time as an industry family to come together and to actually solve the problems for the American people. Gigi, I want to thank you for all the work that you've done on behalf of so many people. I know you don't do this for the thank yous. I know that.
I don't do it for the money either.
You definitely don't do it. You don't do it for. I know you don't do it for the money. You do it because you care. And I think if we're ever really going to take a bite out of the problem that we have sitting in front of us and really get beyond the noise, we need more people that have the characteristics that you do, waking up every day, bringing the fire, bringing the energy, but more importantly, bringing honesty, integrity, and accountability into this space in a way that we can talk. So I want to thank you for spending the time, taking the trip out here to San Diego, to this beautiful facility.
It is beautiful. My God.
Oh my goodness.
And the wine is awesome.
Yes, we better put our plug in.
Wine,
yes.
And wine is important, to find balance. It's important.
Balance and a good glass of wine kind of go together at times. So, again, Gigi, I want to thank you for being here on the Megabyte Me podcast as we go beyond the noise and tell the American broadband stories.
Well, this was delightful. I enjoyed it enormously, and I value our friendship a great deal.
Likewise. And from me to you, I love you. I don't want you to know that.
I love you too.
That's good. We need more of that.
Yep.
Good. Thank you. Love you too, man.